Embark on an epic journey in a mystical world unlike our own. A world in search of new heroes. Heroes that stand fast in the face of evil.
I was right behind you, Jak!
Really? I was.
A new legacy is born. Rated E for everyone.
Bring 'em on!
In the wake of the early 2000s during the PlayStation 2 era, many childhood memories, foundations, and preferences related to entertainment were laid down as many of us, or in the case of a couple people I know anyway, innocently played through these games that generated this magical feeling of wonderment in their younger years. Whether if that familiar childhood image is that of a Keyblade, Omni-Wrench, or what have you.
Fish? Where's everyone going? Bingo?
You're pretty good.
I'm sure we all think back to the PlayStation 2 with a certain fondness, based on those games we might have played. For myself, my fondness for the PS2 brews from Naughty Dog's dynamic duo in Jak and Daxter, the Precursor Legacy. This is a game that possesses a lot of personal history for both myself and the gaming world as a whole, and I wouldn't doubt it having personal history to the ones who developed it. This series takes me back to a different time, and hell, a very different Naughty Dog too, if you will. And it opens up many memories as I recall the times in my childhood when I first played this game, graduating from commonly playing Naughty Dog's Crash Team Racing and Insomniac Games' Spyro 3, Year of the Dragon, on the first PlayStation to the second PlayStation with this game. With that console having finally been in our family's household back then, it gave me a new opportunity when my parents showed me the Jak and Daxter case for the first time, as I was prompted to, and I quote, "try this game." Jak and Daxter is also something of a personal topic related to the things I commonly use every day now on the internet, but back then, they were still in their infant stages and we had no idea how big they would become for better or for worse. Regardless of how different YouTube looks today, I still hold the memories of finding my first few YouTube videos related to Jak and Daxter content all those years ago, be it fan-made videos, things from Naughty Dog themselves, that commercial I just played in the video's opening, etc. It's quite poetic actually, since here I am today, creating YouTube content, and I'm finally doing something Jak related with my current skills. Speaking of the present, I know I said I had a few other beginnings before Jak and Daxter, but I have to give credit to the Jak trilogy for not only compelling me to stick with being interested in what the PlayStation brand has to offer even today, which yes, still includes Naughty Dog after all these years, but also platforming related games as well in a few cases when I have the chance. Though I gotta say, it's really nice to see certain platformer related IPs get the love that they deserve, and there's still a joy to play through like before. As for Jak and Daxter, however, their existence has still been acknowledged time and time again over the years, and even today. But man, I'd love to see them come back for another new game one day instead of being remastered and ported over again like many times before over the years. A man can still dream, right? I'm sure many others feel the same way, but for now, I'm glad I can still play these classics today. So with all that being said, let's trek back 20 years into the past and delve into what made the Precursor Legacy as unique and distinct as it was, and appreciate together the impact that the adventures of this mute boy and charismatic Otzel duo had in their debut title. Naughty Dog's transition from the PlayStation 1 to the PlayStation 2 was an interesting one. While I'm sure at the time they were proud of what they achieved with Crash Bandicoot 1, 2, and 3 previously for the PlayStation 2, they wanted whatever their new world was going to be to feel completely immersive, where it feels like one big interconnected world, as opposed to their traditional methods of walking out to different portals and jumping in and waiting to load into drastically different play spaces scattered across time. Some sections in Jak's world can be considered a loading screen, in air quotes, but at the same time, the way it's handled almost tricks my brain into believing that it's not, since it really does all feel like one giant world, which also helps in the fact that you can see specific objects moving in the distance, maintaining that feeling of one massive interconnected world. Now for the basics. After you complete the game's tutorial level, per se, on Guys of Rock, getting to know the basics like the different moves Jak has, the artifacts you'll be collecting, what kind of powers Jak can possess, and how you can obtain them depending on what's available around you, in addition to how your health works, you're plopped into the first part of this bigger world as you're introduced to Sandover Village. Sandover Village, similarly to other worlds you travel to throughout the game, serves as hub worlds. In these hub worlds are opportunities to collect the items necessary for progression, speak to other characters scattered throughout the game, and maybe ask a question or two on why things are the way they are. While the characters themselves all have a unique personality tied to each of them, all have a common purpose in relation to Jak's quest, complete a specific task, or exchange precursor orbs for a power cell. And if you're lucky, some characters will have 2 power cells to hand out, if you have the orbs and done what they've asked for, or, in a very specific case, 4, technically 5, regardless of who you visit and speak to for guidance on what to do next. I'm sure a slight change in the hub level's music can be noticed by players, depending on who you approach. The music can have something added onto the regular pitch, indicating your vicinity to who you're about to speak to, which I think is magnificent, though the most consistent ones throughout the game are the same as in Kira mixes. While they're there to help you, you don't necessarily have to talk to these characters in order to complete or unlock these objectives. If you know what to do, you can just make your way in and go nuts by doing whatever task you want in whatever order you choose. And while there are some exceptions to that, and sometimes it's better to go to certain levels and do certain things first before going to other levels, that freedom really just allows anyone to go in at their own pace and explore the world at their own discrepancy so they can learn these things and soak it all in. But again, it's very beneficial to say, for example, head towards the Forbidden Jungle, located within the Sandover Village hub world area first. Climb to the top of the Forbidden Temple and activate the blue eco switch inside so that the inactive blue eco vent on Sentinel Beach can already be turned on by the time you get there, so you can access another power cell among a few extra orbs via the Precursor launcher that can now function with the blue eco channeling through Jak's body. Speaking of eco, as I mentioned earlier, Guys of Rock gives you an idea of what to look for to give Jak additional abilities, albeit in a limited amount of time, with the introduction of eco clusters and eco vents when learning about blue eco and its effects on certain things in the environment. But that's not all the eco there is to harness and come across in the Jak and Daxter playspace, and for each one encountered, it's on you, with Daxter even making some helpful callouts as well, to discover how they function and how they complement the exploration and progression of each level. And while Jak and Daxter are alone together, tackling each obstacle and enemy that they come across, it does not omit a connection that they share with supporting characters. A very significant connection that the duo shares with Kira are through the transpads set up around different levels, so that Kira may send appropriate support that can allow for Jak to easily traverse certain areas, and that support comes in the form of the Agrav Zoomer along with the Flutflut. While the Flutflut only has a few dedicated sections to certain levels tied to its usage, the Zoomer takes up a bit more, as they, more or less, take up entire levels, 4 to be exact if I'm not mistaken, and 1 in one section of a level. Though the Zoomer takes up a bit more than the Flutflut, I'd argue that both are still fun to travel on, especially through the exhilarating pressure I feel watching my gauge increase with the heat shield over lava. Timing jumps right in the case of the Flutflut. And again, while the Flutflut isn't used as much as the Zoomer, at least we were able to somewhat fix that problem in the future, as things balance themselves out in 2004. But that's 2004, so let's come back to this era of Jak in 2001. So, if you complete the game and collect all there is to collect from the precursor orbs and power cells, you may be wondering, okay, now what? If I made this review 5 years ago, I'd probably be blanking, since, in truth, at the time, there was nothing other than just starting a brand new save file and starting from scratch again. But today, 20 years later, after remaining elusive for all these years, it's been reported in the Jak and Daxter community that the fishermen in the Forbidden Jungle had some other secrets laying dormant all this time, and nobody knew about this until recently. Except maybe Naughty Dog, of course. When I thought I knew everything there was to know about this game, and when I thought I was the master of a fishing minigame, something I found super difficult to do back then, boy was I wrong. But that's what I find the most amazing about this whole ordeal. Naughty Dog may be beyond making Jak and Daxter at this point, but the work from 20 years ago, without a doubt, still has its impact left on the community. It makes me wonder what else has yet to be uncovered, but until those days come, if they do that is, I guess we'll just have to wait. But for now, working with the material I'm most familiar with, this is the perfect opportunity to go over their story's origin now that I laid out what occurs among the two throughout the game the player navigates. So, with that being said, let's take it from the top and once again start from the very beginning. While our heroes, in the eyes of certain role model figures, were destined for greatness as their destinies lay ahead with the help of their guidance and wisdom, Jak and Daxter's beginnings were not so humble. Matter of fact, instead of following the old sage's guidance, both the young boys went against what they've been told to do and snuck out to a place they were told many times not to visit. But since Misty Island was a place they ended up visiting anyway, that's where the two not only were made aware of a lurking evil force threatening to endanger their home along with the surrounding areas, but it was also the place where their lives would inevitably shift forever. So if you were wondering while watching that intro, wait, wasn't there this little orange creature on Jak's shoulder on the game case? Well, there he is. Needless to say, Daxter was not 100% thrilled about his new transformation in the pool of dark eco, while Jak was only left dumbfounded and confused of his friend's new look. And while that moment was a confusing, hard-to-swallow pill to take in for them both, the harder thing, I imagine, that both Jak and Daxter had to face together upon returning home that morning was going to their mentor, Samos the Sage, for help regarding Daxter's situation. While they got a good scolding as the boys expected, the thing that I believe Daxter wasn't expecting was Samos's nonchalant statement, explaining that he can do nothing to reverse Daxter's transformation. According to Samos, however, there was but one man whose knowledge of dark eco transcended anybody's in the land, Gall Acheron. There were a few problems, however. 1. Gall has not been seen nor spoken to himself, or anyone else for that matter, for a long time. And 2. He supposedly resided far to the north, and there was no immediate way to travel conveniently with the teleporter gates, as Samos's fellow eco-sages hadn't kept their ends turned on for reasons unknown. With Samos announcing that there was still a way north, there was still hope yet for the duo, and things continued to get even better by the minute as Samos's daughter, Kira, stepped in to tell them that she happened to be working on a safe means of travel through the fire canyon, provided that the boys could find power cells, scattered around the land that is. Samos wasn't just about to let the two travel about willy-nilly, looking for the items that Kira needed for the zoomer and the heat shield to function. So that's where he gives them a test to practice before they set off on a real adventure, since Geyser Rock's obstacles are more merciful than the things waiting for Jak out there. As I stated while talking about the gameplay, Jak's world can be explored freely, but that only begins after the Geyser Rock section is completed and Samos lets them go. While Jak simultaneously looks for power cells, despite me saying earlier that it's not really a requirement to trigger certain objectives in the gameplay space, canonically he'd complete certain tasks and then return to Samos and Kira for advice on how to progress, or that's how I imagine it anyway. And once Jak, accompanied by Daxter, satisfied Kira's power cell count along with the needs of Samos, Kira, and anyone else requiring assistance, they continue their journey north. Something I have to appreciate about this, in the Fire Canyon's case, is the fact that the game almost warns you about what's to come. Sandover Village's hub world, minus the fact that it can change from day to night given some time. The path to Rock Village changes the sky as dark gloomy clouds begin to settle in, coinciding with a rapid change and spread of the lurkers along with their schemes, and the fiery situation taking place in Rock Village, as you wonder what's roaring in the distance, eventually finding out after Samos and Kira join you in the Blue Sage's hut that it's a giant lurker monster, Claw. But Jak nor Daxter was gonna let any big ol' boulder-hauling monster to stop their journey to the north. Neither was Kira or Samos. They may feel a temporary sense of relief by the time Claw is taken down, but there still wasn't any time to rest, since their next destination was taking them to the Red Sage's hut. It's here where they finally are able to meet the famed Gall Acheron, the dark eco-sage that can change Daxter back to his human form. Trouble is, though the audience along with Jak and Daxter, but only to an extent for those two, would know and recognize these faces from the beginning, things may feel calm under the steampunked hustles of Volcanic Crater's music, but there's an underlying anxiety waiting to break through again among all the characters, such as Daxter finding out that Gull, the only person who can potentially change him back, is plotting to cover the world in dark eco. And it won't just be Daxter's problem anymore, but now they know the vast stakes as a result of Gull and Maya's scheming. Maybe earlier on, Samus would have jokingly remarked on everyone turning into whatever Daxter turned into when confronted with the Misty Island situation, but dark eco being dark eco, it could ripple everything they know across the land. Maybe not everyone is going to care about Jak and Daxter's heroic quest to save them all, but they were still going to do it regardless. I should also mention that this is the point where Samus actually somewhat lightens up on the boys as they prepare to venture into the nearby areas in search of power cells to upgrade the heat shield on the zoomer to safely travel through the lava tube later. Earlier in Sandover Village and Rock Village respectively, he'd hound and scold the boys to the point where the ground just comically shakes as if an earthquake ruptured the area, followed by a running gag where Samus wants Daxter to clean. But it's here where he maintains the urgency in telling the boys of the task they need to complete, but does it in a less condescending way almost, which is most poignant when he speaks to the boys on the matters going on in the snowy mountains. Maybe I just saw what I wanted to see when replaying the Precursor Legacy in the summer, but I almost want to think that it's in relation to Jak and Daxter getting closer to their goals and them growing up, thus resulting in them becoming drastically different people compared to the beginning where they lazed about and did whatever they wanted. But Samus had the utmost faith, which is a faith that he continued to maintain even if he, to his daughter's dismay, found himself in Gull and Maya's captivity, along with his fellow sages, when Jak and Daxter were finally able to take off towards the Citadel through the lava tube. At this point, Jak and Daxter have been through a lot. They've collected many power cells, seen many things, and fought a variety of different creatures in different environments, including the consistently present lurkers, scattered across the land looking for artifacts to serve Gull and Maya's schemes. But now, this ultimate final test, to ultimately prove themselves as the heroes Samus believed they could become, they had to trek through Gull and Maya's Citadel and save all 4 eco sages. Which is aside with me wanting to have seen these sages in their natural environments back in their own village and wanting to have seen them a bit more, it's a nice way to finish the journey that started all the way back in Sandover Village, which is a journey I can appreciate even more upon teleporting from the gate located outside Gull and Maya's Citadel back to Jak's home in Samus's hut. And what's an even better feeling of accomplishing a long journey is the big finale taking place at the highest peak of the game, capping everything off in this game's main story, a final showdown between good and evil, light and dark. The precursor robot that Gull and Maya, while constructed and used based on leftover material left behind by these supposed precursors, along with each of the 4 sages' different eco-types. It's actually thanks to a mix of yellow, green, and blue eco, combined with Jak's tenacity, they can defeat Gull and Maya's robot they're controlling. Sorry Red Eco, I guess you were left out of this one. Well, kinda. Actually, after a consistent barrage of different attacks is where Red, along with the other 3 Ecos, are able to come together over the Dark Eco silo to form White Eco. Now, Daxter looks at this new Eco they've seen together and thinks that it can change him back. But on the other hand, there's many lives at stake. Even if he had to fight the urge to choose himself, he still approved of Jak's final actions, take the White Eco and use it to finally obliterate, literally, Gull and Maya's plans to bits. And now, Jak and Daxter can return to their allies, safe and sound, having saved the world from disaster. Though, despite Gull and Maya's downfall, they're not completely done yet. Naughty Dog presents one final piece of a puzzle, serving as an epilogue to the Precursor Legacy, the true ending. Whatever Gull and Maya had hidden behind the Precursor door, it's something that fans at the time, even me, before the next game, speculated on back then. Where would we have gone from here after making a large major discovery like this? We, along with Jak, Daxter, Kira, and Samus? Could only speculate, and until the day came for a sequel to the Precursor Legacy, we could only guess. But without getting into too much detail here, let's just say whatever ended up happening next became quite the wild ride. I gotta admit, When starting the trek through the territory of breaking down a childhood game like this, I was a little worried that I'd come out at the end of it feeling semi-underwhelmed of the game I played, especially since I'm very fond of what came after. But no. I'm really happy to say that I appreciate Jak and Daxter's debut title even more. I don't think less of Jak's sequels, but I do somewhat feel different now due to the realization that the Precursor Legacy is in a league of its own, and it's very distinct from the rest of the trilogy. It's very simple to learn, is lots of fun to play, and it's amazing that Naughty Dog pulled off this seamless world with the PlayStation 2 hardware all those years ago. They took on a challenge that pushed them to the edge, executed it to the best of their ability, and 20 years later, not only do I still love playing it, but it's also a very phenomenal game that sets up a lot of things related to Jak and his world. And to think all these years ago, I almost rejected my parents' offer to play this game due to my overgrown attachment to what I played before. But in hindsight, I'm forever grateful that I was shown Jak and Daxter, the Precursor Legacy, all those years ago. Well everyone, that's all for me today. Before we wrap up the video, I just wanted to give proper mention, along with giving a few updates. Back in July, I was contacted by a Jak and Daxter dedicated page calling themselves and their event Jak Month. When they, along with many others, were interested in seeing my reviews on Jak and Daxter, I graciously replied saying that I'd love to contribute to their event for Jak and Daxter's 20th anniversary. So if there's anything else right now, Jak and Daxter related in the community, if they're still out there, then I'd say Jak Month is the perfect thing to mention. Now yes, I was told to have my first video done for October, but I'm far from finished in relation to things regarding Jak, along with Jak Month. Sometime in November within the Jak Month organization dates, I'm aiming to have videos out on Jak 2 and Jak 3, but before we get to November, I have two specific projects I'm trying to tackle, which are of course reviews on Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart and Review Starlight. I was admittedly going to have those two videos out before this video, but I decided against draining myself and rushing out videos that I probably wasn't going to be happy with. So with that in mind, before I get to work on making videos on Jak 2 and 3, I'm going to redirect my efforts to completing these two projects before the end of November, hopefully. And then, depending on what's happening, I'll slowly be cooking up my next Jak and Daxter videos afterwards. And that's about all I have to say regarding any updates. If you liked what you've seen today and want to continue supporting my future content creator endeavors, feel free to subscribe and check out a few playlists in the description containing my other videos. And if you want to express any further means of support for myself, you can pledge to me on my Patreon page that I recently relaunched, where I offer things like early showcases of future projects, access to my own Discord server where you can chat with myself and fellow patrons, and even expressing other means of thanks like having your name in the credits along with shouting some of you out. So if any of that is of interest to you, check the link in the description and pledge at whatever tier is to your liking. Alright everyone, thank you so much for tuning in and hearing me out. Until next time, take care of yourselves and farewell.
Here we go. This is GWT1, Gall Wild Track 1, take 1.
Okay, sickly evil laughs. That's too stupid. That sucks. What's an evil laugh? We're not going to take it. What kind of idiot would write a lyric like that?